live, we have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat, period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the lifeboat. I'm Tommy. If ever there was a night that talking about politics would have been fun, this would have been it. So, but I'm not going to do that on this channel. I'm just going to say we live in a banana republic and leave it at that. You saw the thumbnail. Oh, first things first. I heard from Heather Joy, and Heather still needs some prayers for lack of a better way to put it. She's going through it. She's struggling, and that's the nature of what she has, and it's painful and it's debilitating, and she could definitely use our prayers. I mean, she's okay, but she's in a lot of pain. They were going to do some tests on her today, so I'm sure that I will hear more from. And she said to thank all of you for the well wishes and the prayers. It means a lot to her. So we're going to talk about success. We're going to talk about success and about balance. And I think if you asked 100 people what success means to them, you get 100 different answers. It's one of those words that, I mean, people use it in so many ways. There are success coaches. I mean, boy, we talk about it a lot, don't we? Success is really one of those catchphrases in the world, but definitely in the United States. So I think it's important to figure out exactly how you define success. There was a time in my life where the way that I defined success was considerably different than the way that I do now. There was a time in my life that I was dedicated enough to money that I spent a lot of time asking money if I could do things, if that makes any sense. Money became the master, and you ended up doing a lot of stuff that you just wouldn't have done. And I don't just mean drugs. I mean, working and long hours and selling stuff that you might not believe in. Today I did a 2-hour show talking a lot about my past and thinking about some of the things that I did for cash, and I mean legal ones, just pretty crappy and unethical ones, but they were legal. Success now has come to mean something completely different, and after I got sober, I started to learn that if I write things down, good things happen to me, right? Better things happen to me. If I take things and I put it on paper, and that goes from journaling, that goes to writing a goodbye letter to your drug of choice. It's being active in your sobriety. I know that there's the vast majority of people who hear that journaling is a good idea. The vast majority go, yeah, I'm just not really the journaling type. Write a letter to your goodbye letter to your drug of choice. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know if that's necessary. I was that guy forever. I really was. I was that guy forever. Is there any way I could just talk about it? Because, I didn't want to write. I didn't want to get into all of that. I figured I could probably still get sober, kind of dipping my toe in the water. And there are people, I'm sure, who can. There are different phases of addiction, to be sure. And that's one of the reasons, hey, squirrel, knock it off. That's one of the reasons that within sobriety, there are so many different definitions. If you've been drinking a fifth a day, every day for 5 years, thank you. And you go 300 days without having anything. And then you get really, really lit up. In fact, you spend 3 days lit up, right? The rest of the sobriety community calls that a huge failure. I don't know. Seriously. I mean, take the previous 5 years, compare them to the last 305 days. If the person can get back up and dust themselves off and do that model right there for the rest of their life, they could probably live a pretty good one. They could probably live a pretty good life if all they did was a 4 or 5 day bender once a year. I could never do that, But like I said, there are so many different levels of addiction, so many different kinds of addiction. The not to mention substances. You take 2 million people who are addicted to heroin and you get 2 million completely different type of addicts. I mean, yeah, the general core is the same, but everybody's a little different. And where they draw the line, there are people who start to steal, and there are people that go to work. I actually knew heroin addicts that would go to work sick as hell. And, we'd run stuff over to him so that he wouldn't, lose his job. It never made any sense to me. Never made any sense to me. And there were girls that, got turned out, in order to pay for their drug habit, they sold themselves. And then I knew girls that you would have to kill them first. And, they'd be right by you stealing or doing whatever, because that was the line for them. Those lines are how we define success while we're still addicted. Those things that we put in place that are as the moral high ground, as long as we can maintain that, well, then we're really not like really addicted. We're not really like those people, the ones you see with no teeth. They're, the ones that you see with the track marks all over them, Like, I'm never going to use a needle. I went down that road. By the time I hit rock bottom, there was nothing left. There really wasn't, I mean, I vowed that I would never kill anybody and never came to that. Thank God. But that was probably the only thing on the list. As far as putting boundaries up and things like that, I would zip and by most of them, if not all of them. But that was how I defined success at that time. Obviously, that evolves. And it evolves throughout sobriety. When I first got sober, success to me was getting through the first 24 hours. And that same style of success was like that for about a month and a half, where every day I didn't give a crap about anything other than keeping air going into my lungs, trying to eat something. And during those ridiculously long periods of time that I couldn't sleep, not going insane. But it was all about just not using. There was nothing else. And if I could get through 4 hours, I honestly would look at the clock and be like, I did it. You know what I mean? They're going to lock these doors in about 40 minutes and I wouldn't be able to get it if I wanted it. But that was success. That was all it took. And I think it's important you start looking at yourself when you're new in sobriety. I think those little victories are awesome. I didn't try to make them that way. And I don't know that Q did either. I think it's just sort of a byproduct that if you're setting small goals for yourself, if you decide to get sober and you say, I'm going to quit drinking and win the Nobel Prize, there's a pretty good chance you're not going to hit that one out of the park in the first year, But if you can say, I'd like to get a job, I'd like to maybe get insurance so that If I run into somebody, I'm not going to be in deep trouble. I'd like to catch up on some of the bills. It is amazing how fast money stacks up if you A, have a job, and B, don't do dope. I'm sure a lot of you have the app on your phone that tells you what your sobriety date is, and it keeps track of it for you and tells you the last time you used, how many days it's been, down to the hours and minutes. And then it'll tell you how much money you saved. I've never used that app because when I got sober, I obviously didn't have a cell phone. So by the time I got out, it didn't make sense to me to do it. But trust me when I tell you that there have been many, many times that I sat down with a calculator and started doing math at $700 a day and running that out for 365 days. And then realizing that at that habit, I probably went on for about 4 or 5 years of that. And it's not like I had the money. I had to get up in the morning every day and get the money. But all that still passed through my hands. All that still, if I had just been committing all those crimes to stack money, I obviously could have retired. But success at that time in my life, success was getting dope every single day and not getting arrested. And those are the only two things that mattered to me. The only two things. I didn't want to get pinched because that meant getting dope sick in jail and going to prison again. And that I just wanted to not get caught. And I wanted to make the feeling go away. I wanted the feeling of being me to go away because I didn't like it. And I remember looking at, we used to, we're old. I'm old. But me and my friends would call the people that weren't getting high and weren't doing stuff like that. They were squares. That was just the term we use, dude's a square. One of the squares I went to high school with is now a mayor of the same city that Bernie Sanders used to be a mayor of. The squares did amazing things. Do you know why? Because they were comfortable being them. We might have picked on them, given them a little crap. We were cool. I was still friends with the cat, but we ribbed them a lot, But those guys that didn't mind when you cracked the joke, they just continued to keep being themselves. And they would occasionally wander into a party and you'd say, "You're not going to have a beer?" And you just peer pressure them and they'd stand their ground. And we'd laugh. What a square. The difference is they were comfortable in their own skin. He was cool just being at that party, being him. How awesome is that? Sadly, I wasn't hardwired that way. And I'm guessing that the vast majority of you aren't either. So throughout the years that you're using, failure is very easily defined and it continues to get bigger every day. Success, those itty bitty little victories, you rob a dope dealer. I mean, honestly, like those teeny victories where for 3 days, you don't have to worry about anything. Or for 5 days, you got enough dope to last you 5 days. And it's just 5 days of not worrying about anything. Those days would stick out in your head. Truthfully, those were the days that you could remember. But success and failure change over the course of time. So now where am I at? Now I think I'm where most addicts are after they get a year. That kind of, when you start getting to the 365, you get past that 1 year mark and you start no longer counting in days and you start counting in years and you start to get a little traction and you start to believe that this really is something I could probably do for the rest of my life. And you start to go through the issues of, maybe this was a symptom. Maybe there was a reason I was uncomfortable. And trying to figure out what that reason is becomes a thing. But then you got to start balancing life. Because it can be very easy to just say, sobriety is really, really important. It's so important that I'm not even going to get a job. Because everybody in this town does dope, right? So I'm not going to go. I mean, there's no place I can work. It's that kind of town. Everybody gets high. So no chance of that. And, I'm not doing this, or this. And I've watched people really draw into themselves They were so panicked about, relapse that they didn't live life. It's the dry drunk concept. The knuckles are white. I'm not going to use. It's really no way to live, which is why the 12-step programs and programs where there's some homework, some assignments that you can do that will actually progress you through from early sobriety to mid sobriety to hopefully now I can start concentrating on life sobriety. And when you get to that point, you're going to find that there's probably like 5 or 6 things, and you're going to have to put them in a certain order that makes sense to you. But these 5 or 6 things don't change, right? We all have them, everybody. What you believe. So having a belief system, and that doesn't necessarily mean religion, although it can absolutely mean religion. But defining what you believe is an important thing. Without it, you can't really define your morals. And you may be a person that says, you know what, I just wanted to stop using. And if I get a chance to pull a lick, I'll probably still do it. I mean, in all honesty, if I could pull a job, 70, 80 grand, not get caught, yeah, I'd probably do it. Well, at least the person's defined where their morals are. They're not kidding themselves. You have to figure out who you are, right? It's one of the reasons that we lean on the whole, hey, you really need to design who you're going to be on that third page, that third assignment. Who the hell are you going to be, right? What are your morals? What are your values? Define it, because these are the rules that you're going to live by in theory, especially if you say stay sober. You're putting together a framework that is going to be what keeps you from becoming what you used to be. Obviously, family is really important. In fact, I tell you what, I can give this to you in the order that I use it in. You can put it in any order you want. But for me, sobriety becomes the absolute first thing. And it has to be. Because I've said it so many times, I lose everything else on this list. So it goes sobriety and then God. But without the sobriety, I'm not going to be able to hang out with God. And it's like this, what came first, the chicken or the egg thing, because I really believe that God is going to help me stay sober. So it's, it's odd. Samana, I think you're back. Good to see you. So second for me goes family. And in family, you got, significant others. If you're dating, if you're engaged, if you're married, and then kids and parents and siblings. I got a beautiful email or text message today from my younger sister, who just said, we don't spend enough time together. She was trying to take responsibility for it, which is awfully nice of her, but I don't think it had anything to do with that. But it was nice. We've had our problems in the past, but there's nobody right now in my life that is family that I have any problems with. And this morning we talked a great deal about family, right? And interacting with family, birth or otherwise, the family that you were given or the family that you choose. For me, that's the reason that's second, is because a great deal of my sobriety also hinges upon my family. And in so many ways. Number one, I lean on them, right? My brother is very high on my list of people in my 5. If I start getting really off track, Johnny's going to get a call on whether it's 4 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning. I got 2 brothers, basically, one from God and one that I chose. And those are the 2 people that if things start getting squirrely, I'm going to call. So having the, hold on one second. I may have gotten a Rolex. Sorry, I'm on a waiting list for a watch. I've been forever, but no, that was a text that said, still haven't got it, but we're thinking of you. Nice. If you want those watches, you got to get on a waiting list for like 60 years. It's absolutely bizarre. It really is. Sorry. So family is huge because family and God are absolutely the basis and the backbone of what keeps me sober. And I include in that the family that I choose. not just the family that I was born with. And if you think about it, it kind of sandwiches, right? I'm right between. I got God on one side, or my belief system on one side, whatever you groove to. And it really does not matter to me. Whatever you believe, you think it's the universe, you think we're inside the matrix, whatever makes you happy. And I mean that literally. If it makes you happy, that's probably a good thing. It's probably something you should put really high on that list. If it's making you happy, that's good. And it will help define who you're going to be. And if you don't think that's an important thing, trust me, it is. Because you're going to run into people throughout the rest of your life that may have known you years ago. And they say things like, hey, man, you want to go do this? Or they start talking about something that makes you uncomfortable. Wouldn't have made you uncomfortable 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Just people who talk really casually about things that really are pretty messed up. Like my morals can't handle that anymore. At one time they could pretty easily. But, things have changed and I've clearly defined those things, which is why I have the friends list that I have. It's why that there are people in my life that I can't be around. They don't fit in with the moral code or the ethical code, that I have set up for myself. And it's pretty damn important to me. I do not want to compromise that in any way. So family's big. And then obviously you got to pay bills, right? So work for me is number 3. And for a lot of people, work ends up being number 1. And I'm sure that there are people who would say that about me because I do put a lot of time in to the things that I do. And what I would say to those, because I get emails from you guys so often, you really need to slow down. You really need to slow down. You need to slow down. I spent a lot of time really slow. You know what I mean? I spent a lot of time really, really slow with the inability to do anything that I wanted. So if I'm doing 2 things a day or 3 things a day, I'm pretty sure I can pull it off. And I would like to get a lot done. And I don't have a whole lot of, I'm definitely on the back 9, you know what I mean? The B side. I'm on the other side of a 45, right? I'm definitely a B side. But when that cash starts coming in, you start working, and I don't care what it is. You got a 9 to 5 that's paying you $15 an hour, or you get a career that starts paying you huge money and it means something to you. And it's not just work anymore. It's a career and it's a mission and whatever. Whether you're making dog crap or whether you're making a ton of money, there is a part of that would have gone to drugs. I would recommend that you don't spend it on something else. Just advice. But I would recommend that you don't spend that money on something else. Because what it comes down to is, as crazy as this sounds, it's extra money. Now, I don't go out to clubs. I don't hit restaurants. There's so many things that when I was making a lot of money that I used to do all the time. We might go out to lunch 7 days a week, just stupidity, right? Or gamble away money or do whatever. Very often when people get sober, they get this newfound appreciation for money. I've seen a lot of people in sobriety, and they go one of 2 ways. They either start worshiping it, and it really becomes kind of tough. It's tough to watch. It's disturbing. Or they go the other way, and they are frugal. If they were any more frugal, you'd probably call them tight, right? It's just really tight. Doesn't spend money on anything. The kind of guy that would say to you 2 months later, the last time we were together, you drank 3 of the beers that I had, and I paid 12 for the whole case. So that's 3 you owe me. Think I'm kidding? I hope Johnny's still in the chat, because that one was for him. He knows what I'm talking about. We had a friend like that. True story. We really did. So as that cash starts coming in, people think that trying to save money is a really, really difficult thing. You know what I mean? It's just hard. You want to hear the simplest system in the entire world? Figure out how many bills you got. Let's say hypothetically you got 5. You got rent, you've got a car payment, you pay insurance, you got to take care of your cell phone and whatever else. How about food you eat, right? So whatever the number of bills you have, and then make an envelope for every one of them, right on the outside of the envelope. My mother was the one that told me this when I was really young. She was counseling me and my first wife because we weren't doing such a hot job making ends meet. But we stuck to that system. And in a couple of months, I remember going into these envelopes and going, why the hell is there money in this? Like, shouldn't this have been gone? But we were always rounding up. You know what I mean? So if the car payment was $300, we put $400 in the envelope. And we just did stuff like that. And then we had an envelope just to screw around. We had an envelope full of fun money if you wanted to go do something fun. But that system dramatically changed our lives. As simple as that sounds, that envelope system really changed our lives. It did. And when you start putting a little bit of money away, even if it's $5, it will change how you feel about life. I'm not kidding you. There are apps now that will allow you to buy micro stocks, right? And I don't mean penny stocks. I mean, you can buy Microsoft or you can buy Tesla, but they will sell you this much of it so that you don't have to buy one share at $650. They're making it so that anybody in the world can invest. Why is that a big thing? It's a big thing because you never would have done it when you were an addict. Would you have invested some money? You're out getting wasted, sticking needles in your arm. You got 10 grand in Bitcoin? Probably not. Probably not. And nothing screams square like, I'm checking my portfolio, right? You are really the anti-drugger at that point. You really are square. And it's a good feeling, no matter how much it is. It's a good feeling. And all of those little things reinforce success. If you look up the definition of it, right? It's the completion of a goal or an aim. So as you're talking about family and you get the job, right? All of those things are successes. You had on the list, I need to get a job. I'm sober now. I need to get a job. You get one. Then you get a better one. And trust me when I tell you, this is stone cold fact. It's been researched. You can't argue it. The easiest way in the world to get a job is to walk into a place and say, I got to give who I got 2 weeks because I've been working there for a while and I don't want to screw the person. You're hired. They will hire people who already have jobs because it's such a crapshoot that you're going to hire someone. They don't show up on day one, or if they do, they steal stuff. If you've been with somebody for a period of time, they'll take you. Easiest way in the world to start climbing to better jobs. After you've been 6 months at every place, start looking for something that pays better. Start putting apps around. Don't be cool with the status quo. And you know why that's awesome? Not just because it brings in more money, makes you feel better about yourself. Those are cool things. Make no mistake, those are cool things. But they're goals. They're goals that you achieve. And achieving success is a friggin' habit. And we're all really good at picking up habits, right? We're really good at picking up habits. Like nothing else, right? I'm better at picking up habits than I am anything. I'm not very good at quitting them. Took me 30 years. But I'm very, very good at catching habits. And if you get into these habits, good habits, it makes life more fulfilling. I'm not saying money makes you more fulfilling. When you don't have to ask money's permission to do things, when you have enough time to sit down and think about things other than money. Money's great if you don't have to think about it, right? That if you got enough so that you don't sweat the bills, right? To me, that's success. If I'm not worried about the next bill coming in, I got enough money to pay all of the bills. And if I want to go out and get something to eat, I can do that. And I got a car, and I actually have insurance on it, that kind of stuff. That's not, I want to own Trump Tower, right? That's not, I want to be Elon Musk. That's, I have found contentment is not getting everything you want. but wanting everything you get. And there's really something to that. It sounds like a cliche, and it is. But as my bobble-headed partner would say, cliches don't become cliches because they don't make sense, right? They become cliches because they make a crap load of sense. So now you've got cash and you're putting a little bit of it up. If you are not doing something of an outlet of some kind, you're liable to go insane, right? Little recreation is a pretty good idea. Some recreation is good because it does a couple of things, right? Exercise is good. It's going to make you live longer. You're going to produce all kinds of chemicals that you used to pay money for real. Like you'll get dopamine and all kinds of cool stuff getting released into your brain if you just go out and walk a lot, or you do yoga, or you run, or you do anything. Start doing some exercise. And it's a metaphor for sobriety. I remember having this conversation with my brother Johnny. I was working out when I was incarcerated. And the workouts we were doing, you would not believe them because you had nothing else to do. Like we decided we want abs. So you would do crunches and you would do, 16 sets of 50. And it's just ridiculous stuff. And while you're doing it, there's a guy smacking your stomach. And you would get up in the morning and go, oh, no, man, it's ab day. But the second you started doing it, your brain was already sending those chemicals of, hey, you're doing the right thing. That reward center starts making you feel good the second you walk into the gym or the multi-purpose room or out onto the yard or wherever you're going to start working out. It's a metaphor for sobriety. It sucks in the beginning, but you got to do it. You got to put it in. And then it starts feeling unbelievable. And then you're just not going to feel right if you don't do it. It really is a metaphor for sobriety. For sobriety, it's a metaphor for life. There are going to be days you don't want to do it, but you're going to have to get up and do it anyway. And then, golf, frisbee golf, whatever. But get outside. Get a little grass between your toes. Swim. Those things are, they're the kind of stuff you did before you got high, right? Think of the things you did before you became a drug addict. When I was a kid, we were either swimming or outside running around, playing in the river, riding bikes. It was nonstop activity. We're like perpetual motion machines from the time we got up in the morning until we collapsed at about 8 o'clock at night because you just couldn't keep your eyes open anymore. And then something happened. And that little kid that felt so comfortable in his skin wasn't anymore. And unfortunately, I found the way to make myself comfortable that was not really the great way. In that same category as recreation, could be going out to dinner, could be doing whatever, but it's that envelope you're going to put some money in just so that if you live alone, or you and your girl or you and your guy can say, you know what, man, I don't want to cook tonight. Let's go out and get something to eat, catch a movie, just blow some cash one night. And the beautiful thing is, most of the people that get through sobriety, one of the reasons we're generous is because all of us know what our daily habit used to be. You know what I mean? Like if one of my kids calls and says, I'm kind of in a pinch and I need $100 or whatever. Well, if you used to stick $700 a day into your body, it's $100. What's $100? I know there are people who would have a completely different concept on that, but drug addicts do not care about money until they do. Money is just something you can trade for drugs. Jack, whenever we couldn't get the dealer on the phone, they either got busted or they're not showing up, or he would pick up the wad of money and stuff it by his nose. Can't sniff it, can't shoot it. This stuff's worthless. It was a standard joke, but not much of a joke. Not much of a joke because that's really how it is. And then the final thing for me is something that, not everybody is going to have this on their list. Not everybody cares. In fact, probably most people don't. I think this may come from a character defect. If you really want to know the truth, I think this may come from a personality disorder. But The last thing on my list is the legacy. I shouldn't care about this planet after I'm gone, but I do. Actually means a lot to me. The If you're new to the lifeboat and you never saw the show that we did on ripples, then you should probably go watch it, because it would do a much better job of explaining why the whole legacy concept means a lot to me. Because this boat and things like it, like the group that I had when I was still incarcerated, the group of guys that I met with, some got out before me, and I kept in contact with, and none of them, not one. For all I know, they could all be back in, or they could be creating ripples in the opposite direction. And one sober person changes the planet. And that's something that can keep me up at night. I'm not being funny. Like, if I'm laying in bed, that concept to me, you start thinking about the domino effect, or what did they used to call it? The butterfly effect. A butterfly flaps his wings in the Amazon rainforest, and it starts a little breeze, and that breeze does this, and by the time you get somewhere, someone's shooting somebody or something. It's just this crazy chaos theory that the smallest little thing can affect the entire planet in one way or the other. And if that is the fact, and I believe in my kind of operating system, that's something that I absolutely accept. That is a fact. The smallest thing can change dramatically how the world is going to shape up for you, the people around you, whatever. So if somebody gets sober and their kids never see them loaded again, they never see mom and dad hit each other, right? In some cases, just as importantly, they see you kick it. There's a respect. I think people miss this, but there's a respect that you get from people in your family. Once they get it, it's a beautiful thing. There's always going to be a little residual, and they'll always say something that's kind of callous because they may not think it through. But yeah, legacy is something that means something to me. I would like to affect and have the boat affect as many people as possible. I think about kids mostly. I think about not this generation, but the next one, or the next one, right? Or the next one. Because somebody's going to leave the lifeboat sober, have a couple of kids. And if that person stays sober, there's a really good chance the kids are going to, right? Those ripples just, you ever look at a family tree, just how fast those things, you look at the top, starts with two people, and about 15 inches down, it's like, half a mile across. Well, it's kind of the same principle. And I don't know, maybe it's not, I'm not writing my name on any of these people. I'm not actually able to take credit, or anything like that. But it really is something that I think about. How am I going to leave this place? I have no fear of death. I have no fear of death whatsoever. I really don't. I won't get into that here. I'll tell you all about it on the other channel if you want. But I just am very confident about how it all goes once I'm no longer here. But I would really like to think that, we changed a couple of lives for real. Because if we saved 2 or 3 people from ever going back, man, oh man, does that change the timeline, right? You saw what happened when McFly barely did anything, right? All he did was a postcard or something. And, pretty soon that guy owned the casino, and there was all kinds of problems. Anybody get that reference? Anybody? Bueller? All right. So I was going to work in a flux capacitor reference, but since I don't hear anybody doing the, yeah. So peeps, There's definitely a division of labor now. And I'm changing up how things are done. So over there, it's just lifeboat raw. That's what it is. It's the lifeboat raw. The subject matter is over there because it's free speech. I take advantage of that. If you're thin-skinned or you're one of those people that don't talk to your Aunt Carol because of her politics and you don't ever want to see her again, maybe you should just hang out over here. I mean, you might agree with my politics and everything would be great, but you might not, and then you might hate me, and that wouldn't help. I'd love to live in the world again in a time where that didn't matter. I think that would be really cool. Sadly, it would be up to our kids to make that happen. It's too late for us. A couple of generations of idiots, and this is what you get. And we live in a banana republic, and I'm sticking to that one, people. I am Tommy Scoville. I will be back tomorrow really early in the morning. And this, right, y'all, that tucked up tight, too. I don't know if you can see that. She's really got her head in there. Oh, no, she's not happy. That is a cat in a basket. Be good, peeps.